What is the fastest you have ever seen a new coworker get fired? Moving company. Midwest. Most people didn't make it through the first week. They will hire literally anyone who can pass a drug test. Turnover was really bad, but I guess that's the nature of the job. I'll never forget Jeremy. Jeremy was 18. Did not apply for colleges. So his parents made him get a job. He was hired as a mover. As is everyone. He shows up the first day to roll call in a full suit and tie, asking where his desk is. This was a group full of former convicts, high school dropouts, and generally rough dudes trying to make a living. We laughed so hard. Jeremy went right back home. Next day, Jeremy's mom shows up to give the manager a piece of her mind. We laughed even harder. Is sad and funny at both times. During their onboarding training, they stole my boss's wallet on camera. 1 hour in. This is the opposite route here, but I found it amusing. My boss was out of town and I managed a tea shop near a Starbucks years ago. This kid came in foreign and said he was supposed to start today. We were hiring and I trained him, etc. My boss came back 2 days later and had no idea. The kid was in the wrong place, but he stayed with us. Hired on the spot without even applying. Would be funny to see a comment from the Starbucks manager of having to fire his new hiree that never showed up on day one further down in this thread. New guy drove a forklift into a fire hydrant in front of a safety rep for the company. His supervisor was called over, and he immediately tells the supervisor that he won't pass a piss test, as he used his only bottle of clean piss earlier that day when he hired in. Everybody standing there immediately burst into laughter, which continued as security, also laughing, escorted him off-site. Even the supervisor was all gave him a pat on the back and wished him the best of luck. It was wild. A week. I worked in a bar and a new girl started at work. She seemed a little rough but was fine. One day she finished a shift, sat at the bar and ordered a red wine with lemonade and ice in it. Not really relevant to the story. Just shows she is clearly insane. Her boyfriend came in. They had a huge domestic in front of my manager and several customers, and she threw her drink over her BF and dramatically stormed out. New bar drink. Wine, lemonade, a domestic. Don't forget it's on the rocks. Just like the relationship. Heard this from a manager I worked with when I worked in fast food. There was this one kid who didn't show up for work. He ditched work often. So the manager called around. Couldn't get anyone to fill in his shift. So she had to fill it for him. A few hours into his shift, the dude ditching shows up with his friends and orders food from that manager. She fired him on the spot. These were my first awards. And y'all just multiplied my karma by 10. Thanks y'all for the likes and awards. Congratulations. You've been promoted to a customer. First day of work. He walks in. Says what the beep is up dumbass to the guy that parked next to. Didn't touch his new Camaro he bought since he got hired. The guy was the CEO of the company I used to work for. On visit to our branch. Literally 10 minutes into his shift he was signing release papers. I want to see the interest rate for a first day of work loan. Go check out any dealer near a military base. The amount of times my buddies had to give the new recruits the talk about not going to the dealership by the base because of the incredibly bad deals/rates. Yet have recruits go to the dealership anyways and buy a car. I worked construction. We had 2 new hires that were friends starting the same day. Boss told one take a coffee order and come back. Took everyone's money and said he needed his friend to go with him cause it was a big order. They never came back. They quit a construction job to steal and split the cash from a few coffee orders. I imagine if they had stayed and worked a full day they would have earned more than that. Yeah. But it's hard work. Guy got hired. While going through orientation realized that his ex-GF worked there too. Turned around and walked right out the front door. My man. This was a while ago at my old job. New guy gets hired as a busboy. He was super annoying and tried to insert himself into everyone's conversation whether they wanted him there or not. It only took a couple of hours for the whole restaurant to hate him. I was working the bar and he kept eating the bar fruit. I personally didn't care but the manager did. Manager comes over and tells him to stop eating the fruit. He looks the manager in the eye and eats another piece of fruit. Manager says really? Followed by come with me to the office. New guy promptly replies with all right man. Calm down. I can tell you got that big dick energy for a good reason followed with cliche wink and nudge from his elbow. In front of me and like 4 other employees. I wanted to slam my face into the ice bin. It was so cringy to witness. He promptly walked out the front door 10 minutes later without his uniform on anymore. The worst thing about it was the manager was an insanely laid back guy. Hell. The whole restaurant was insanely laid back. You really had to try hard to get fired from this place. Had he not thrown in that big dick line, I'm almost positive he would have just gotten a slap on the wrist and kept the job. You got that big dick energy absolutely kills me. Why would you ever say that to anyone? Let alone your boss. Not sure if it counts as being fired. But a guy in our basic training threatened a drill sergeant with a bayonet. No idea what happened after he went to the hospital. But I didn't see him again. I choose to believe that the DS yelled at him with extreme dedication until he needed medical assistance. That is an excellent way to phrase that. Worked in a grocery store for a while. New guy took a lobster out of the tank and removed the elastic bands on its claws. Then proceeded to put it back in the tank. The thing murdered all the other lobsters in the tank. I was halfway expecting a theft attempt by putting said live and free lobster down his pants. I thought he was gonna chase co-workers with it. Not gonna lie, I'd find that funny. I got hired as a long-term temp with one other person to do some basic data entry work at a major brand pretty much everyone has heard of. And it was at their corporate headquarters, so pretty prestigious. Anyway. We went through all of this onboarding stuff in the morning that required us to get photo IDs and figure out parking and all that stuff. Then after 2 or 3 hours we were introduced to one of the employees in our new department who began going over what we were going to be doing. None of it seemed overly difficult and I figured that while it was new system I had never used before I'd be able to work it out in a few days as long as I asked questions and took notes. And that was the thing that made me realize that the other person who got hired with me probably lied on her resume and was completely out of her depth. She didn't take any notes and didn't ask any questions. And whenever I glanced at her I could see flashes of panic on her face. Well. Lunchtime came and when we came back she said that another company had called her and offered her a permanent position and she couldn't work with us longer. Both me and the person training us knew what was going on, but I'll give the other lady credit for finding a way out without losing face too badly. The takeaway here is, yes, fake it until you make it can and does work. But you gotta be able to fake it. You can't fake faking it. Yes. Fake it until you make it can and does work. But you gotta be able to fake it. You can't fake faking it. Exactly. Gotta do it right. My aunt, many moons ago as a young woman, applied to a well-paid job as a secretary. The interview went well and she typed really well and quickly. IRC there was a test and then she was asked if she could also do stenography. which she answered in the affirmative. It was also a lie. You bet she went and took lessons and got busk on it immediately. And was up to a fairly good ability by the time that job actually started. This is how fake it until you make it actually works. One of my previous IT jobs, I had an interview where they asked some questions about network security that I had vague knowledge of, but not in depth. They called me back for a second interview, and I spent a good amount of time over the next few days reading up on the topics they had asked. When I went into the interview, after small talk, I jumped in and went, "So, you previously asked me about XYZ. And I was a little nervous. But here's what my answers should have been." Later on, one of the people on my interview panel told me that had largely locked in his vote for me to be hired. He said he didn't care if I'd known it or not previously, either I had, which was what they wanted, or I'd researched it and taught myself enough about it in a few days to look knowledgeable. Both were acceptable in his eyes. We had a recent college grad that would use his corporate card for personal purchases. He figured that the company would just keep deducting from his payroll until it was paid off. He was fired after 3 months of constant reminders to stop doing it. I don't think it qualifies as the fastest, because he lasted 3 months. But it was so idiotic. A 19-year-old kid got hired to work the seafood counter. See him twice and then never again. Asked a co-worker what happened. He had closed seafood one night and was walking out of the store, and the 5 pounds of crab legs he'd stuffed down the back of his pants fell out in front of the closing manager. It was at a Publix. No. It was not Jameis Winston. Did this young man happen to win the Heisman Trophy? He was intercepted by the closing manager. So yeah, it was probably him. New guy started on Monday and was gone by Friday. The guy hit some racking in the warehouse with the forklift. Boss saw him do it, and the guy decided to lie about it when asked if he knew what happened. The only thing he did wrong was to lie to his boss. A shame, really. Mistakes happen. And most employers are cool about it if you own up to it. Lying, though, that's a bad idea. No castles or moats were involved. Just the pain of typing a comment on a tiny phone. Sorry. I worked for a big home improvement store that I won't name. All I can say is the stores are orange. We had a guy come into work speed-faced and run one of the forklifts into the outdoor storage racks with customers around. Another employee forcibly removed him from the lift and dragged him to the back. Dude was given 2 options. Walk and potentially face criminal charges, or go to an inpatient treatment center on the company's dime, and his job would be there if he wanted it after he got out. I can honestly say it's the one actually good thing I ever saw the company do at a corporate level. Couldn't pass the simple tests given at the end of new hire orientation. Yelled at test facilitator when she wouldn't just take the test for him. Sounds like an engineer my company hired. He was a PhD and really hit it off with the guys in management. Had some female colleagues working under his direction. And he was an absolute dick. Demeaned their work. Blamed them for things not working. Now my colleagues were excellent formulation chemists. He was brought on to lead a new formulation project and it wasn't working. He would tell them how to do it and it never worked. He kept blaming them for doing it wrong. My co-worker got fed up and called him on his bull's peep during a big meeting with a prepared presentation describing what they tried. How thoroughly they tried it. Why what he proposed would never work. And an alternative solution. He was pissed. But the management guys were extremely knowledgeable and started asking him questions. And it was clear he couldn't answer. Turns out, his wife has a PhD too. And she pretty much did all of his degree work for him, both from a culture where women are not treated equally. He knew absolutely nothing. Not only that, But once everyone got to talking, it was clear just how massive an asshole this guy was. Sadly, my colleagues had to deal with this for months before everything was said and done. Did they hire his wife? That'd be awesome. And a great lesson for that guy. I wonder how he got a PhD though. Even if his wife did most of it. You still have to take exams yourself. Do research there. Present your thesis/doctorate, etc. This was a pizza place I worked at in college. New guy was started on Thursday. Fine worker, we showed him the ropes. He was on subs, which is the easiest job. The instructions are right in front of your face. Friday he no call no shows, it's Friday. The busiest night of the week. And he and I were the only kitchen workers that weren't also drivers. Monday a police officer shows up at the restaurant looking for him. No idea what happened as he wasn't there. Tuesday the owner informed me he was let go. Probably had a warrant and boss found out. The IT crew at a large government office worked on a ticket system. Meaning that the government workers submitted their problem online and one of the IT guys would pick it up on their end. The new guy just started his first day. Logged into a computer at an empty office. And submitted a reinstall entire OS request so he could spend all day there. The manager decided to check in on him before lunch to see how he was doing. And he was completely asleep. Fired before they even finished his hiring paperwork. Spent my summers in college working as a laborer for a construction company. Anyway, we were doing a bunch of renovation in an active hospital. So noise and dust were a huge concern. We were a small crew and just starting renovations on an area with a super tight schedule. So the company hired a subcontractor for some of the work. Enter these two clowns who show up to do some demolition work. Foreman gives them the talk about how they may be used to doing things a certain way. But this is an active hospital, so he'd rather the work take longer than for them to make a huge mess or a lot of noise. An hour later, we apparently got multiple complaints about the noise and the mess. So the foreman calls me up and says to go over there and clean up now. And that he'd be by shortly to see what the hell was going on. These dudes had dust and broken wall everywhere. I could hear them halfway down the hall. Just smashing away without a care in the world. The foreman shows up and we walk into the room to witness this dude standing on a pile of rubble swinging a sledgehammer over his head at a brick wall that he's removed the bottom from. Somehow the rest of this wall is still hanging from the ceiling. I have no idea how. Guy wasn't even wearing a hard hat. Apparently oblivious that at any moment that wall might give way and crush him. The foreman lost his beeping mind on these guys. Kicked them out immediately. And got on the phone with their company and told them he didn't want to see these guys on site again. Lots of choice four-letter words were used. Even threatened to fire the subcontractor entirely and get someone else to do the work. Guy wasn't even wearing a hard hat. Apparently oblivious that at any moment that wall might give way and crush him. On the plus side, you're in a hospital. Guy got hired. Went through training and all that jazz. First day on the floor. He disappeared for 3 hours and then came back high as beep on like meth or something. A manager found him in the bathroom aisle. Staring at himself in the mirror. Said manager looked at the cameras after firing him. The guy was there staring at himself for at least 30 minutes. To clear up some questions. I worked at Home Depot. He was in the aisle where we sell bathroom countertops and medicine cabinets. We also have mirrors in this aisle and that's where he was. Not in the bathroom, haha. Co-worker quit his job. Great job. Great pay. Great benefits to work in a radio repair place. I mean, gotta do what you love, and he was also a big radio enthusiast. Got fired the first day on the job for stealing parts for his own radios at home. Took him over a year to get back with us. Surprised they rehired him. He then got fired for being a security risk about a year or so later. Christ. He could have just asked if he could rummage through the e-waste bins. Most places are fine with that speep growing legs.